new internet. With Chisa being in the game for a while now, Pridwen has updated their tier list and we do see Chisa in it already. Long story short, although it may look underwhelming, but it's actually not too surprising that she's not exactly tier 0 dominating everything right now. So let's just jump right in and take a look at how Pridwen has ranked their tier list. First of all, there's the point of with or without signature. With Chisa, you really do want her signature weapon, as it contributes to a lot of buffs and damage output on her own. And focusing on the part where she has her own signature, she would be considered at tier 0.5 based on Pridwen. We'll be jumping into more on her later, but let's just start with tier 0 for now. And pretty much there's nothing that's changing yet with tier 0. It's pretty much the same. One common thing that you would notice is most of the newer characters would be dominating the top tiers. We see Galbrena, we see Augusta. They're quite recent characters that got released, so yeah, they're still top tier currently. We had an outlier in Cartetia, which has been dominating forever. And we do have Frolova, which is actually getting stronger and stronger, specifically with the addition of Qiu Yuan. As for hybrid, you'll see most of these characters being the sub DPS support for the DPSs that's really top tier. And it's pretty much the same few people. Chakonu with Cartetia, even with Augusta, Qiu Yuan with Frolova as well. All are a part of a really strong team that is tier 0 anyway, so yeah, makes sense that they're around here. And as for support, we do see only a Shorekeeper. It's still her. Truly the goated support of Wuthering Waves. The fact that she's still holding this much value now after like 2 whole versions is insane. But with that said, let's just take a look at tier 0.5 now, where we will see one of the main changes and the main focus of this version. Now, first point being Chisa is ranked straight up as a support based on Pridwen. Now, in my opinion, I would actually put her a bit on the left. It's a mix of hybrid and support. Her own damage may not be as high as just like, you know, obviously a Lupa or obviously a Brandt, especially with her own signature. She does have some damage output on her own, but her supportive capabilities definitely outshine all of the other parts, especially considering that she can heal, provide you with shield, provide a lot of support for negative statuses, and she even has a gathering ability for enemies. But regardless of all of that, she's ranked at tier 0.5 and not tier 0, although she's labeled as a partner for Cartetia. A Cartetia team pretty much being the best team of Wuthering Waves in University. You would think that Chisa would be tier 0, which I suppose it's still fair, but let's just take a look at the changelog of Pridwen of why they ranked her there. Based on Pridwen, Chisa's actually in a difficult spot in the current meta because she only works with negative status character and is only worth using over pre-existing options with her signature weapon involved. One of the main reasons as well being she really only replaces Arrow Rover, and Arrow Rover is already more than enough to complete the Cartetia Chakona team. It is worth mentioning that Chisa with her own signature is actually better than Arrow Rover for Cartetia given the perfect synergy that they share, especially with the increased limit of arrow erosion from Chisa, while Chisa is actually an overall addition that's better in a Cartetia Chakona team, but the difference is not that crazy that Arrow Rover would be immediately replaced, which is why in the end Chisa's ranked with Arrow Rover at tier 0.5, and honestly considering tier 0 is someone as generally top tier as Shorekeeper, which she can be used in pretty much every team while being the best option for multiple teams, I definitely think it's fair to put her at tier 0.5 with her signature involved. As I already mentioned in the Should You Pull video, the main value of Chisa at the current moment is to take the spot of Arrow Rover so that you can free up Arrow Rover for future element rovers, right? There's only one rover that you can use at least so far with this system. If you do choose to lock Arrow Rover in the Cartetia team, in the future there might be a separate element rover that gets released, especially with the coming version. There's a high chance you'll be forced to have your rover be swapped off of this current element, and that's when Chisa's value truly comes to shine. That being the first scenario, while the second scenario is that Chisa may be very good for coming characters. We already know that the negative statuses are being buffed outside of Arrow Erosion and Spectral Frazzle. However, we have not seen any other team that specifically uses, say, Havoc Bane or uses any of the other negative statuses. We only have Arrow Rover and Spectral Frazzle so far, which is why Chisa's usage is very much limited right now, and it's also why it's really hard for you to decide on Chisa. On one hand, if Wu was being predictable, they will be releasing characters that uses negative statuses, and that being the focus of the next version, and if that happens, Chisa's stocks will just rise up, and she'll most likely 100% be part of tier 0 in the future if that's the case. She'll be the character that will be used in at least 4 or 5 other teams with multiple negative statuses, and usually newer characters would synergize with each other better than older options. So while Chisa's not exactly the best option for, say, Zanny in a Spectral Frazzle team right now, she is technically the best for Cartetia slightly, and if newer characters get released that uses different negative statuses, Chisa may be able to synergize with them a lot better than some of the older characters. In Wuthering Waves, however, you'll see Chisa in quite the low tier. One of the simple reason being, while Cartetia in Wuthering Waves is not exactly the best character to use, yes, she can clear it, but she's not exactly perfect for AoE scenarios, at least compared to the other top tier characters here, right? Without her signature, her rank drops down way more, both in Wuthering Waves and University, but regardless of anything, Chisa is still one of the best characters, considering she can simply be used with the best team currently in University, with high high potential value in the future. Currently though, Chisa does not look like the best character ever, which I can see why it's kind of polarizing. Do let me know what you think about Chisa though. I do still think it's very much worth pulling her. Obviously you should pull whoever you like and want to play with, but with Chisa's case it's quite hard to really have a set in stone answer, at least in the current meta, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it for tier 0.5. One more other thing to take note of would be that Zanny is in tier 0.5 currently. As mentioned, she's no longer a tier 0 DPS, and Chisa can most certainly still work in the Zanny team, just not as perfect, right? Moving up next, we got our meta characters, but we see a lot of the older characters here, right? The point of interest would be with GN, considering with the addition of Yuno, he's actually solid enough to be in tier 1, which I think is fair. Another point of interest would be Jeji dropping away from tier 0.5 to tier 1 now. That the best team Jeji's a part of are all older teams, and currently the focus is definitely on negative status with Chisa, or it's with echo skill damage or heavy attack damage with the likes of Yuno, with the likes of Galretta. For that reason, they're placing Jeji down in tier 1 now. As usual, it doesn't mean that she's completely unusable. She's still strong in her own way, just not meta defining. That's just top tier all the time. It's fair enough. And as for the rest of the list, it's pretty much all the same. A lot of familiar characters with their own issues. Some can get a lot better though if you do play them well, like for the case of Kalcharo. Given the main focus of this update is certainly Chisa. To conclude on Chisa's capability, I think it's fair that she's not exactly found her perfect playset in the current meta, with the best spot that she can fit into being a spot that's already perfectly complete with Arrow Rover. But as mentioned from before, Chisa's definitely a character that has a lot of potential in the future, but also know Kuro to be a sort of a troll sometimes, especially on Twitter where everyone's expecting some sort of teaser for the new version and it just released like a dancing capybara video. They could just release Chisa and be like, you know what, we're just gonna introduce a whole new archetype for version 3+. Well, I think the chances of that happening is very low, but it's not zero, man, it's not. But yeah, speaking of the future, there's an infinite amount of things that could happen, but chances are I think Chisa's gonna get better and better down the line, and they're just preparing new teams for Chisa to be used in the coming versions, while still having her be usable right now, so you'd have a reason at least to use her now, instead of just being forced to pull a character and have her be sat in your account not doing anything until a new version hits, right? At least that's what I would do if I'm designing things. But given I'm just a player, let's talk about her in the current meta only though. She works in the Cartetia team, not that well anywhere else, considering your other option is only the other negative status team of Zanny, and outside of negative statuses, she's damn near just not usable, with 99% of her kit just surrounded around negative statuses, right? With all that said, I look forward to more buffs and more characters and teams with a negative status archetype, especially with the 4 other negative statuses that we don't quite have a full team for yet. I personally look forward to a Havoc Bane team because, well, that probably is something that should happen first when Chisa herself is like a Havoc Bane applier mainly. I happen to think a Havoc Bane team will be dominating top tier soon, but that's just my prediction, and that'll be all. Let me know what you think of Chisa, and if you are going to be pulling for her. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and take care.